Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webcast entitled Self-Serve Data Preparation with Tableau Prep. My name is Deepraj Peddakota. I'm a principal consultant at Thorogood, and I lead our Tableau practice. In this session, I will introduce Tableau Prep and take you through some of the use cases for how it can be used in your analysis work. So for today's agenda, we will do a quick introduction and then briefly summarize the key points about Tableau's Prep tool. We will then dive into a live demonstration to show what the tool can do. Finally, we'll wrap up, and if there is time, answer any questions that you guys may have. So first, a brief introduction to Thorogood. Thorogood is a customer-focused business intelligence and analytics consulting firm. We operate globally. We're headquartered in the UK and have offices in the US, as well as presence in Singapore, Brazil, and India. We focus on a combination of analytical ability, business focus, and technology to deliver unique solutions to our customers. Our services range from helping customers with their BI and analytics strategies and roadmaps, through to the delivery and the maintenance of BI and analytics systems. Thorogood has been a Tableau strategic alliance partner for over 6 years now. We have very strong links with Tableau. We also have a large number of our consultants who are highly experienced at delivering Tableau projects. We also partner with a number of other technology vendors. Our knowledge and understanding of multiple BI technologies such as Alteryx, Microsoft, and Anaplan, as well as our experience with data, gives us the ability to deploy Tableau solutions that integrate very well with other technologies in an enterprise BI landscape. Finally, just a quick look at some of our customers who we've helped deliver Tableau capability. Before diving into Tableau Prep and the demo, I wanted to give you a brief overview of Tableau's product suite. Tableau can be broken down into 4 major offerings. The first offering is Tableau Desktop, which many of you may already be familiar with. Tableau Desktop offers an on-premise tool for users to create dashboards, reports in an agile development environment while supporting self-serve analysis of their data. Next is Tableau Server, which is a web-based visual analytics platform. It enables collaboration amongst users and offers mobile reporting capability. With Tableau Server, you have the ability to also publish data sources that are used by Tableau dashboards, and that can be used to enable self-serve within your organization. The next one is Tableau Online. Tableau Online is a software as a service offering. It's very similar to Tableau Server, but is hosted and maintained by Tableau in the cloud. And finally, we have Tableau Prep, which we will look at in more detail in the rest of this session. So what exactly is Tableau Prep? It's a fairly new Tableau tool that helps customers efficiently and confidently combine, shape, clean the data for effective analysis. Tableau Prep provides a very visual experience that allows you to understand and manipulate your data effectively. Once your data is properly prepped, it can be ingested into Tableau for analysis by Tableau Server as well. The Tableau Prep tool uses smart features which makes data prep easier. Tableau Prep can utilize built-in fuzzy clustering algorithms, turning some time-consuming repetitive tasks into simple clicks. We'll look at an example in our demonstration later. As mentioned earlier, this offering integrates very well with the other Tableau products. The final output of Tableau Prep is an extract file that you can use directly in Tableau Desktop, or you can publish to Tableau Server to then consume via the server. The latest release of Tableau Server has a new add-on called Conductor. Conductor provides the facility to schedule and run data prep workflows in the same way as you can schedule and run extracts on Tableau Server. We'll take a look at this in the demonstration as well. Data preparation tasks have always been a bit of a pain point, as they can be very time-consuming and require high levels of effort to produce something that's of good quality. The new prep tool takes many of these pain points away and makes it easier for users to analyze their data. So with that, let's take a look at Tableau Prep. Before I start my demonstration, I'd like to just give you a brief overview of the example that we're going to look at today. I'm an analyst working for a retail bank, and I want to do some analysis on some mortgage quote related data from across my bank. The data is available in 3 files, 2 files that are generated by a quote system and have a very similar format. So I'll quickly open one of these files. So you can see that the format is very structured and very easy to consume in a tool like Tableau. We also have a third file from the southwest of the UK, and the structure of that file is slightly different to the file that we get from our the two files we get from the source system. This inconsistent file format is very typical when you're trying to collate data from within your organization. So here you can see you have some blank rows, some blank columns, and then you have your cities on top, and then some measures on top as well. So certainly not the same structure as the other two files, but also quite hard to consume in a reporting tool directly. I also have a file that contains some source system related information that we'll use to join into the files from the code's systems. All right, so with that, I'll switch to Tableau Prep. So this is Tableau Prep. For those who are familiar with Tableau Desktop, you'll recognize the similarity. Like Tableau Desktop, it is a desktop tool that you'll have to install onto your computers. And it's very similar to Tableau Desktop. You start off by connecting to datasets. To connect to a dataset, you can click on the Connect to Dataset button, or you can expand the connections here. I'll click on Connect to Data, and that gives you a whole raft of connections that you can connect to. Again, if you look at Tableau Desktop, there are quite a few connections that are available there. Prep, being a fairly new tool, does not have quite that many, but this list is constantly growing with every release of Tableau Prep. In my case, I want to connect to a text file, so I'm going to start by selecting text file, and then that takes me to a window that I can then use to connect to my file. So my first file I'm going to use is the mortgage source quote source file, which is a CSV file. I'll double click that. What Tableau Prep has done now is it's gone and pulled the file. It's created a kind of a canvas for us to do our data preparation, but also in the bottom here it's pulled out the settings of this file. So for example, here it's automatically recognized that the file is a comma-separated file. It's also pulled out all the column names from the file, and it's given a data type, which you can go and change if you want. It also shows some sample values for you to kind of look at and just sense check the data. There are a couple of other settings. I'll switch to a couple of these tabs. The first tab is a multiple files tab. So in our case, we had a couple of files that have a similar naming convention and the same structure, so we'd like to combine these files. This is very typical of a scenario you have in your organizations. Here you can either choose to connect to a single table, a single file in our case, or you can use a wildcard union. And a wildcard union lets you specify a wildcard string that will then be used to pick up files from a particular folder. In our case, I want to pick up all the files that contain the word source 0 star maybe. Hit enter, and it's already recognized that there are two files in that particular folder that match that pattern. I can accept this, and the pattern is stored. Now the beauty of this is the Tableau Prep workflow stores the pattern itself. Tomorrow when you deploy this into production, you might have more than two files, and Tableau Prep will automatically pick up all the files and put them through the same process that we are building here today. Finally, I'll touch upon the data sample tab. Again, a very useful feature when you're working with a lot of data. In development, you might want to work with a sample of data, which Tableau Prep automatically kind of does for you. But also, if you choose, you can work with all the data. In my case, I'm only connecting to a few files, and I know the data and those files aren't a lot, so I'm going to just use all the data. So we've connected to we've connected to a file, and we've pulled some data into Tableau Prep. My next step is I want to look at this data. I want to visually see what this data looks like, and maybe transform this data and apply some clean data cleansing to this to the data from these files. So my first step is I'm going to add a new step, and you can see here Tableau has automatically added a clean step. Not only it's done that, at the bottom there, it's now walked through all the data that's available in the file and it's also done a kind of profiling for us, so it's easy for us to kind of look at the data and manipulate it as we look at this data. Now, prior to Tableau Prep, you would probably typically do this within Tableau Desktop itself. So make changes to the data, look at the data on desktop, go back, make changes to the file, relook at the data on desktop, and then if a new file comes in, you need to redo that entire process. The entire process is manual and time consuming. In Tableau Prep, you can build those rules into a Tableau Prep workflow, and Tableau Prep will apply those rules every time you run this workflow. I can see here I have a column called application type. There is a couple of values there: capital repayment, interest only. I know these two values are effectively the same, so I can very quickly and easily group them. In this case, I can simply edit the value and type the name of the value in it. So if I can type correctly, capital repayment, and it automatically groups the two capital and capital repayment into capital repayment. Similarly, I can group interest and interest only. I can again type it as I did previously, or I can select the two values and say group. And what it does is it groups those two values. If I expand this pane here on the left, you can see Tableau maintains a history of all the changes. So I can go back, look at this group and replace, and it will tell you exactly what were the values that were grouped together. Right, so that's a simple manual group that we applied. Now looking at customer city, I can see there are a few ways Birmingham has been spelled, but also there is a few ways Cardiff has been spelled, so Cardiff and Bardiff. So I want to apply some data cleansing rules to this particular field. Now I can't foresee all the misspellings that people will make, so I don't want to manually group these values. I want to try and see if I can apply some fuzzy matching algorithms that I mentioned earlier. To do that, I select the field, select the icon there, and I do group and replace again. But instead of doing a manual selection, as we did previously, I'm going to do pronunciation. And what this is going to do is this is going to apply an inbuilt algorithm that looks at the pronunciation of different members within that column, and it's going to group them. So you can see here, it is by pronunciation is picked up all the misspellings of Birmingham, and it's grouped this under Birmingham, although that's a misspelled Birmingham, so I can always edit that and change that value. It's also grouped another value which I didn't notice when I initially looked at this, which is Leicester and Leicestershire. And again, it's named it Leicestershire, but I can change that to Leicester because I know it's pretty much the same that meant that. But it's not picked up something like Cardiff and Bardiff. So I'm just going to click done here, and you can see again it's added another step, another group and replace, and it's applied data cleansing. I'm going to try and see if I can apply another data cleansing step. So I'm going to go back there, group and replace, and use spelling this time. And I'm going to see if hopefully that picks up anything. And there you go. Now it's applied spelling, and it's kind of recognized that Bardiff and Cardiff are essentially the same, and it's picked up the two and grouped them together as Cardiff. So this is great. So I can apply some of these kind of automatic fuzzy logic that then gets applied as my data comes into my system. But I also can look at some of the other data and sense check that the data is right. So things like interest rate quoted, you can see that most of the values are between 0 and 10. There are a few values between 90 and 100. I know that's probably wrong because I don't have any interest rates in a bank between 90 and 100. So I'm going to, for my analysis, I'm just going to exclude those. So it's as simple as right-clicking that bar there and clicking exclude, and that's going to exclude the data rows where my interest rate is between 90 and 100. Now you can edit that filter, and what you will see is that it's ultimately a formula that Tableau Prep has generated. So if you want to go back and change the the range that you want to exclude, you can always do that by editing this formula. I'm not going to do that. So there you go. I've applied a few very basic data cleansing steps, but something that would have taken us a long time if we were to do this manually in Excel or even any other tool. I'm going to quickly bring in another data set. So I know I had a source system name file. I'm just going to bring that in. There you go. So I brought in another file and it's automatically picked up. A very simple file. It just has source system code and source system name, and I can join that quite easily with this data source. So I'm showing source system names. To join two data sources, all I need to do is drag and hover over the step where I need to join, and it gives me a couple of options. So I can either join this data source or I can union it. I'm going to join this, and it automatically then picks up the kind of criteria for the join. And what is really cool about this tool is that it not only performs the join, but it also gives you the resultant in a very visual way that you can sense check. So if you see here at the on the left bottom here, it kind of specifies the type of join, and you can interact with this little Venn diagram there to change the type of the join. So you don't have to explain to the user what an inner join is. You know, it kind of very visually tells you what it is. It also gives you a summary, and this is something that's quite unique to this tool. It tells you how many records have joined in from each of the sources, and how many records have been excluded. In our case, the join looks pretty good. It's joined about 194 records from my first branch to 2 records in my source system file, and it's excluded 4 records, which is fine. And you can see here that it highlights the 4 records that it excluded from my master data file as a result of this join. Good, so I've done that. Now I'm going to tackle the next file, which is slightly more trickier. So I go back to connections and I add another connection, this time again a text file, but I'll bring in my file from the southwest. And you can see here the structure is a bit different. So the first thing I notice is there's a column called F4, which is null, mainly the data. I'm going to exclude that column. There are a lot of nulls here as well. That's probably because there are a few null records on the top of that file, which we will filter out in a bit as we do the next step. But also, it's created 3 columns per city, and that's because the data is available in that format. What we now need to do is we need to unpivot this data and make these columns rows. So I'm going to do that, and that's a very nice tool in Tableau Prep to do that. I right-click on the plus again there, next to the data source that I want to edit, and I add a pivot. Very similar screen to what we saw earlier, some settings in the bottom. In this case, it's telling me these are all the fields that you have in your source. Which fields do you want to pivot? So I know the field Bodmin, Exeter, and Plymouth contains interest rates. So I'm going to drag that and drop that to the pivot fields. And I'm going to adjust the names a little bit. So I'm going to call this pivot 1 names as city. And I'm going to call pivot 1 values as interest rate. Okay, cool. You could do pivots in Tableau desktop as well. What is really unique to Tableau or Prep is a feature called coordinated pivot. So not only that you can pivot 1 column, you can pivot multiple columns at the same time. So in this case, I can just add a new pivot column, and I can pick up another set of columns that I want to pivot at the same time. Now, traditionally with Excel, you would have to do this in multiple steps, or you would have to, in Tableau as well, in Tableau desktop as well, you have to do it in multiple steps. But in Tableau Prep, you can do that in one single step. Again, I want to replace the name of this column. I know this is the loan to value ratio, so I'm just going to call this LTV. And finally, there's another column that I needed to pivot, which is these set of columns. I will go back and add another set of pivot values, and I will drag these columns into that. field. There you go. Unlike the previous thing, I know this column is mortgage values, so I will just call that mortgage value, rename that column. You can see here the null columns are coming through. Again, this is because there was some null columns in the file, so the data columns start from something like row 4 or something in the file, so we can, we want to ignore these null columns, and to do that, I can simply right-click on any particular value. So I'm saying if my interest rate is null, don't bother bringing in the rows from the data source. So I can just right-click, exclude, and it's taken it out of the data source. Now, all of that changes are tracked. So within the workflow, you can see small icons that Tableau has created, and it's telling you it's applied a filter, and then it's renamed from some fields, as well as performing the pivot. And you can always go back and look at the details of the change in the tab below. All right, so I've manipulated the structure of that file to be as close to my other files as possible. I now want to bring these together. Again, like I did a join, to bring these together, I will just drag this pivot step and drop it on the join step, which is the resultant of the join step is what I want to union. In this case, I'm going to drop it on the union. And you can see here the Tableau prep has automatically created a union step, and it's kind of unioned all this information. As with the join, you get a summary of the union, which is great. Again, you can see here that in one of the branches I called it city, whereas in the other branch it's called customer city. So I can quite easily just drag that and drop it on customer city. I know they're exactly the same fields. I just didn't name it correctly in my previous step. So I can go back and change it, or I can just group these columns here. Same with interest rate, really. So and in fact, it highlights that these two columns could be the same, which is also a great feature. So I can select interest rate, and I know it is interest rate quoted. So I can just click on the small plus icon there, and it automatically merges those two columns. So there you go. I've created a very simple data flow. I now have to I want to output this data. So I'm going to click on the plus again, and this time I'm going to add an output. Now there are two choices. If you want to add an output, you can either publish this output to a data source, which is a Tableau server, or you can save it to the file. In the interest of time, I will not publish this data source. I'll just save it to a file and run this workflow. To run this workflow, I can just click on run here, and that will run through all the steps, and it will output the file. A file already exists, so I can say replace, and that's going to output that file that I can then use for my reporting in Tableau desktop. I can also publish this workflow to server by clicking publish here. I will switch to the server, and I'll show you a workflow that I already published. So if I go to the server, click on all flows, you can see here this is a similar workflow that I created earlier. That looks exactly the same, and that's published to the server. I can now run this on the server itself if I choose to. But also I can schedule this to run automatically on the server. So to summarize what we have seen today, Tableau Prep offers a very visual tool that provides sophisticated data preparation capabilities, much more than what is currently available in Tableau Desktop. As you've probably noticed, it's very visual and easy to use with built-in intelligence, which makes it easy for business users and analysts who understand the data very well to prepare the data for analysis. This in turn provides a saving in both time and effort that could be involved when modeling data applying transformations. It also provides opportunity for data integration. So there have been various examples in the past where I had to create a database just to bring data files from different sources together. Tableau Prep eliminates that need. And finally, the conductor tool that I showed on Tableau Server allows you to fully automate the data transformation pipelines from source then to the user community, automatically on a schedule. So that concludes our session for today. Thank you very much for joining the session. I hope you found it useful. If you do need any further information on Tableau Prep or any of the Tableau offerings, please feel free to get in touch with me. My contact details are on the screen. Thank you very much.